This is my father, St. Clair Eubanks, at 21. He had just been inducted into the Army in Dade County, Florida, on August 7th, 1942. Single and on his own in Miami, he had left the family farm in rural Georgia, no longer willing to accept his father's disciplinary beatings, apparently a condition of living under his roof, eating his food. That's the story, according to Uncle Junior, my father's younger brother. Like most of what I know about my father, it came to me through a third party. Stories my father told someone else, who then told me. Consequently, much of what I know and record here is what I imagine could have happened, given the circumstances, or what older relatives told me when I was too young to realize the treasure they were laying before me. With little money and no car, my father made his way through South Georgia with the help of friends and family. Perhaps he hopped a freight car or just walked. The Dixie Highway ran right through Perry, his hometown, but hitchhiking the Dixie Highway was not a preferred means of travel for a young black man during the time of Jim Crow. No doubt he stopped in Jacksonville to visit his married older sister Annie B., then down the length of the peninsula to Miami. My father arrived in Miami at the height of the Great Depression. Bust followed the land boom of the 1920s, but the buildings of highways and railroads, hotels and camping grounds, schools and restaurants that accompanied the boom still provided low-wage jobs for the lucky few who could get them. On the American Riviera, there was always need for a doorman, a bellhop, a maid. And so, according to his enlistment record, my father joined the ranks of bellmen and related occupations. When the workday was over, he would have crossed back over the line, actually a cement wall that separated Miami from Colored Town, a name usually attached to Overtown, but one that could serve as a generic for all the segregated neighborhoods on the far side of Northwest 12th Street. The area my father lived in was called Liberty City. Laid out like an encampment of Army barracks, Liberty Square was the first segregated public housing built by the federal government. Nevertheless, it was regarded as top-of-the-line housing with indoor plumbing and washing machines. Compared to the shanties and other areas, it must have seemed a paradise indeed. Miami was literally a no-go zone for African Americans after sundown. But Liberty City came alive at night when its residents returned to its stores, movie houses, restaurants, and clubs. And while my father couldn't hear Duke Ellington or Lena Horne, who were performing just across that cement wall, he could catch them having a late dinner at Jumbo's or taking their ease at an after-hours club or checking into the St. John Hotel because they weren't allowed to stay in the hotel where they had entertained. I find myself looking for my father in pictures of Virginia Key Beach, the first beach for black people in Miami, or in crowds dancing in the big dance halls or at street dances. He was a good, strong lead. I know, because later he would dance with me to Benny Goodman and Glenn Miller. But I wasn't even a notion in the farthest reaches of his mind back then, for he hadn't met my mother yet. He was just a young man in the city. Smoking by then, I imagine. Was it always Camels? Wearing his felt fedora straight on, as was his style. Perhaps his mind was on the troop carrier that would dodge submarines in its zigzag course across the Pacific to the Philippines, in whose jungles at night the rats would gnaw his toenails to the quick. But that's another story for another time.